Which chamber of the heart receives oxygenated blood from the pulmonary veins? A. Right atrium. B. Left atrium. C. Right ventricle. D. Left ventricle. The correct answer is B. The left atrium receives oxygenated blood from the pulmonary veins before it is pumped to the rest of the body. During which phase of the cardiac cycle does the heart relax and fill with blood? A. Systole. B. Diastole. C. Ventricular contraction. D. Atrial contraction. The correct answer is B. Diastole is the phase of the cardiac cycle when the heart relaxes and fills with blood. Which blood vessel carries deoxygenated blood from the body to the heart? A. Pulmonary artery. B. Pulmonary vein. C. Aorta. D. Vena cava. The correct answer is D. The vena cava carries deoxygenated blood from the body to the heart. Where does gas exchange occur in the circulatory system? A. Arteries. B. Veins. C. Capillaries. D. Heart. The correct answer is C. Gas exchange occurs in the capillaries, where oxygen is taken up by tissues and carbon dioxide is released. Which valve prevents backflow of blood from the left ventricle into the left atrium? A. Aortic valve. B. Mitral valve. C. Tricuspid valve. D. Pulmonary valve. The correct answer is B. The mitral valve prevents backflow of blood from the left ventricle into the left atrium. Where does the heart's contraction begin? A. Right atrium. B. Left atrium. C. Right ventricle. D. Left ventricle. The correct answer is A. The heart's contraction begins in the right atrium at the sinoatrial, or SA, node. Which chamber of the heart pumps blood to the lungs for oxygenation? A. Right atrium. B. Left atrium. C. Right ventricle. D. Left ventricle. The correct answer is C. The right ventricle pumps blood to the lungs for oxygenation via the pulmonary artery. How many chambers are there in the human heart? A. 2. B. 3. C. 4. D. 5. The correct answer is C. The human heart has 4 chambers, 2 atria and 2 ventricles. Which vessel carries oxygenated blood from the heart to the rest of the body? A. Pulmonary artery. B. Pulmonary vein. C. Aorta. D. Vena cava. The correct answer is C. The aorta carries oxygenated blood from the heart to the rest of the body. What is the main function of heart valves? A. Regulate blood pressure. B. Prevent the backflow of blood. C. Produce red blood cells. D. Store oxygen. The correct answer is B. Heart valves prevent the backflow of blood, ensuring that it flows in one direction through the heart. What structures prevent backflow of blood from the aorta into the left ventricle? A. Bicuspid valves. B. Tricuspid valves. C. Semilunar valves. D. Pulmonary valves. The correct answer is C. Semilunar valves, including the aortic and pulmonary valves, prevent backflow of blood from the aorta and pulmonary trunk into the ventricles during diastole. During which phase of the cardiac cycle does the ventricle contract, increasing pressure and closing the valves? A. Atrial contraction. B. Isovolumetric contraction. C. Ventricular relaxation. D. Rapid ejection. The correct answer is B. In the isovolumetric contraction phase, the ventricles contract and pressure rises, closing the valves to prevent backflow into the atria. Which chamber of the heart receives blood from the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava? A. Left atrium. B. Right atrium. C. Left ventricle. D. Right ventricle. The correct answer is B. The right atrium receives deoxygenated blood from the body through the superior and inferior vena cava. Where is the pacemaker of the heart located? A. Left atrium. B. Right atrium. C. Atrioventricular node. D. Sinoatrial node. The correct answer is D. The sinoatrial node, located in the right atrium, is known as the heart's natural pacemaker. Which blood vessels supply the heart muscle with oxygenated blood? A. Coronary arteries. B. Pulmonary arteries. C. Pulmonary veins. D. Aorta. The correct answer is A. Less than break time equals 1s greater than. Coronary arteries branch off the aorta and supply the heart muscle with oxygenated blood to support its metabolic needs. What term describes the volume of blood ejected by each ventricle in 1 minute? A. Stroke volume. B. Cardiac output. C. End diastolic volume. D. End systolic volume. The correct answer is B. Cardiac output is the volume of blood ejected by each ventricle, that's the stroke volume, in 1 minute. It's typically around 4 to 5 liters at rest. What is the medical term for high blood pressure? A. Hypotension. B. Hypertension. C. Hypoxia. D. Bradycardia. The correct answer is B. Hypertension is the medical term for high blood pressure, a common cardiovascular condition that can lead to various complications if left untreated. Which heart chamber ejects oxygen-rich blood into the aorta for systemic circulation? A. Left atrium. B. Right atrium. C. Left ventricle. D. Right ventricle. The correct answer is C. The left ventricle pumps oxygen-rich blood into the aorta for distribution to the rest of the body during systemic circulation. What term describes the contraction phase of the heart cycle, when the ventricles pump blood into the pulmonary artery and aorta? A. Atrial systole. B. Ventricular diastole. C. Ventricular systole. D. Atrial diastole. The correct answer is C. Ventricular systole is the phase of the cardiac cycle when the ventricles contract and eject blood into the pulmonary artery and aorta. Which valve separates the right ventricle from the pulmonary artery, preventing backflow of blood into the ventricle during diastole? A. Aortic valve. B. Tricuspid valve. C. Bicuspid valve. D. Pulmonary valve. The correct answer is D. The pulmonary valve separates the right ventricle from the pulmonary artery and prevents backflow of blood into the ventricle during diastole. Which structure in the heart is responsible for the electrical conduction and coordination of heartbeats? A. Aorta. B. Coronary arteries. C. Sinoatrial synode. D. Pulmonary veins. The correct answer is C. The sinoatrial node, or synode, the heart's natural pacemaker, initiates the electrical impulses that stimulate heart muscle contraction. Which of the following is responsible for carrying oxygenated blood from the heart to the rest of the body? A. Pulmonary artery. B. Aorta. C. Pulmonary vein. D. Inferior vena cava. The correct answer is B. The aorta is the main artery that carries oxygenated blood from the left ventricle of the heart to the rest of the body. Which phase of the cardiac cycle is known as the isovolumetric relaxation phase, where all heart valves are closed and the heart muscle is relaxing? A. Atrial systole. B. Ventricular systole. C. Ventricular diastole. D. Atrial diastole. The correct answer is C. During ventricular diastole, the ventricles relax, and blood fills them in preparation for the next contraction. Where does deoxygenated blood from the heart muscle itself drain before returning to the right atrium? A. Coronary sinus. B. Pulmonary vein. C. Inferior vena cava. D. Aorta. The correct answer is A. The coronary sinus is a collection vein that drains deoxygenated blood from the heart muscle back into the right atrium. What is the term for the force of blood against the blood vessel walls, especially the arteries? A. Heart rate. B. Blood volume. C. Blood pressure. D. Cardiac output. The correct answer is C. Blood pressure is a measure of the force of blood pushing against blood vessel walls. It is essential for proper circulation. Which heart chamber receives oxygen-rich blood from the pulmonary veins, ready for systemic circulation? A. Left atrium. B. Right atrium. C. Left ventricle. D. Right ventricle. The correct answer is A. The left atrium receives oxygenated blood from the pulmonary veins and passes it to the left ventricle for systemic circulation. Where in the heart is the tricuspid valve located, regulating blood flow between two specific chambers? A. Between the left atrium and left ventricle. B. Between the right atrium and right ventricle. C. Between the right ventricle and pulmonary artery. D. Between the left ventricle and aorta. The correct answer is B. The tricuspid valve is located between the right atrium and right ventricle, preventing backflow of blood. What term describes the amount of blood ejected by each ventricle with each heartbeat, usually about 70 milliliters? A. Stroke volume. B. Cardiac output. C. Heart rate. D. Blood pressure. The correct answer is A. Stroke volume is the volume of blood pumped by a ventricle in each heartbeat. Cardiac output is the total volume of blood ejected. Which blood vessel carries deoxygenated blood from the heart to the lungs for oxygenation before returning to the heart? A. Pulmonary vein. B. Aorta. C. Pulmonary artery. D. Superior vena cava. The correct answer is C. The pulmonary artery carries deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle to the lungs for oxygenation. Which phase of the cardiac cycle involves the ventricles contracting and blood being ejected into the aorta and pulmonary artery? A. Atrial systole. B. Ventricular systole. C. Ventricular diastole. D. Atrial diastole. The correct answer is B. During ventricular systole, the ventricles contract, increasing pressure and ejecting blood into the aorta and pulmonary artery. Which of the following structures is known as the pacemaker of the heart and is responsible for initiating the electrical impulses that coordinate heartbeats? A. Atrioventricular node. B. Sinoatrial node. C. Purkinje fibers. D. Bundle of His. The correct answer is B. The sinoatrial node, or SA node, is located in the right atrium and is known as the heart's pacemaker. What term describes the amount of blood pumped out by each ventricle every minute? It's calculated by multiplying heart rate and stroke volume. A. Ejection fraction. B. Cardiac output. C. End diastolic volume. D. End systolic volume. The correct answer is B. Cardiac output is the volume of blood ejected by each ventricle in 1 minute. It's calculated by multiplying the heart rate by the stroke volume. Which phase of the cardiac cycle is characterized by the relaxation of the ventricles, during which the heart fills with blood and prepares for the next contraction? A. Ventricular systole. B. Isovolumetric contraction. C. Ventricular diastole. D. Atrial systole. The correct answer is C. Ventricular diastole is the phase of the cardiac cycle where the ventricles relax and fill with blood. Which valve separates the left ventricle from the aorta and prevents backflow of blood into the ventricle during diastole? A. Tricuspid valve. B. Pulmonary valve. C. Aortic valve. D. Mitral valve. The correct answer is C. The aortic valve separates the left ventricle from the aorta and prevents backflow of blood during diastole. Where does the exchange of gases, like oxygen and carbon dioxide, happen in the circulatory system between the blood and tissues? A. Arteries. B. Veins. C. Alveoli. D. Capillaries. The correct answer is D. Gas exchange occurs in the capillaries, the smallest blood vessels where oxygen and carbon dioxide are exchanged between the blood and tissues. What term describes the phase of the cardiac cycle where all heart valves are closed, and the heart muscle is contracting to increase pressure without changing volume? A. Isovolumetric contraction. B. Ventricular diastole. C. Atrial systole. D. Ventricular systole. The correct answer is A. Isovolumetric contraction is the phase where all heart valves are closed, and the heart muscle is contracting to increase pressure. Which blood vessel carries oxygen-poor blood from the heart to the lungs for oxygenation, before returning it to the heart? A. Aorta. B. Pulmonary artery. C. Pulmonary vein. D. Superior vena cava. The correct answer is B. The pulmonary artery carries deoxygenated blood from the heart to the lungs for oxygenation. What is the medical term for the pressure of blood against the walls of blood vessels, especially the arteries, as the heart pumps blood? A. Cardiac pressure. B. Arterial pressure. C. Capillary pressure. D. Blood pressure. The correct answer is D. Blood pressure is the force of blood against the blood vessel walls. Which phase of the cardiac cycle involves the atria contracting, pushing blood into the ventricles, to finish filling the heart chambers before the ventricles contract? A. Ventricular systole. B. Atrial systole. C. Ventricular diastole. D. Isovolumetric contraction. The correct answer is B. Atrial systole is the phase where the atria contract to push blood into the ventricles before ventricular contraction. Where in the heart is the mitral valve located, regulating blood flow between two specific chambers? A. Between the right atrium and right ventricle. B. Between the right ventricle and pulmonary artery. C. Between the left atrium and left ventricle. D. Between the left ventricle and aorta. The correct answer is C. The mitral valve is located between the left atrium and left ventricle, regulating blood flow between these chambers. Where does filtration and reabsorption happen in the kidneys? A. Renal cortex. B. Renal medulla. C. Collecting duct. D. Renal pelvis. The correct answer is A. The renal cortex is the outer region of the kidney where most of the filtration and reabsorption processes occur. What is the main function of the nephron in the kidney? A. Blood filtration. B. Hormone production. C. Regulation of blood pressure. D. Waste excretion. The correct answer is A. The nephron is the functional unit of the kidney, responsible for blood filtration and waste excretion. Which blood vessel carries oxygenated blood from the heart to the body? A. Pulmonary artery. B. Pulmonary vein. C. Aorta. D. Vena cava. The correct answer is C. The aorta carries oxygenated blood from the heart to the body for systemic circulation. Which structure in the nephron is responsible for the reabsorbing water and essential nutrients back into the bloodstream? A. Glomerulus. B. Bowman's capsule. C. Loop of Henle. D. Renal tubules. The correct answer is D. The renal tubules reabsorb water and essential nutrients back into the bloodstream during urine formation. Which part of the nephron is responsible for the initial filtration of blood in the kidneys? A. Glomerulus. B. Bowman's capsule. C. Loop of Henle. D. Renal tubules. The correct answer is A. The glomerulus is a network of capillaries responsible for filtering blood in the initial stages of urine formation in the kidneys. What is the term for the cluster of capillaries in the nephron where blood filtration occurs? A. Renal corpuscle. B. Renal tubules. C. Loop of Henle. D. Collecting duct. The correct answer is A. The renal corpuscle, which is made up of the glomerulus and Bowman's capsule, is where blood filtration happens in the nephron. What is the term for the structure that collects and carries urine from the kidneys to the bladder? A. Urethra. B. Ureter. C. Renal pelvis. D. Collecting duct. The correct answer is B. The ureter is a tube that carries urine from the kidneys to the bladder for storage and eventual elimination. Which of the following structures is primarily responsible for initiating the heartbeat and setting the pace of the cardiac cycle? A. Atria. B. Ventricles. C. Synode. D. AV node. The correct answer is C. The sinoatrial node, located in the right atrium, is the heart's pacemaker. It generates electrical impulses to initiate heartbeats. What's the term for the heart's resting phase, when both atria and ventricles are relaxed and filling with blood? A. Systole. B. Atrial contraction. C. Isovolumetric relaxation. D. Ventricular filling. The correct answer is D. During ventricular filling, blood flows passively from the atria into the ventricles while both chambers are relaxing and in diastole. What is the term for the amount of blood pumped out of each ventricle with each heartbeat? Usually about 70 milliliters. A. Stroke volume. B. Cardiac output. C. End diastolic volume. D. Venous return. The correct answer is A. Stroke volume represents the quantity of blood pumped out by the heart with each contraction, which is essential for maintaining adequate circulation. When do all heart valves briefly close, creating a silent contraction before blood's ejected? A. Isovolumetric contraction. B. Ventricular systole. C. Diastole. D. Atrial relaxation. The correct answer is A. Isovolumetric contraction is the phase where all heart valves are closed, and the ventricles contract to increase pressure before blood ejection. What term describes the amount of blood ejected by each ventricle in 1 minute, calculated by multiplying the heart rate by the stroke volume? A. Cardiac output. B. Venous return. C. End systolic volume. D. Ejection fraction. The correct answer is A. Cardiac output is a crucial measure of the heart's efficiency in pumping blood and delivering oxygen and nutrients to the body's tissues. Which of the following structures separates the left ventricle from the aorta, ensuring that blood does not flow back into the ventricle during diastole? A. Tricuspid valve. B. Mitral valve. C. Pulmonary valve. D. Aortic valve. The correct answer is D. The aortic valve is between the left ventricle and the aorta. It lets blood flow into the body and prevents it from flowing backward. Where does the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide occur in the circulatory system, facilitating oxygen uptake by red blood cells? A. Pulmonary artery. B. Pulmonary vein. C. Alveoli. D. Coronary vessels. The correct answer is C. Gas exchange takes place within the alveoli of the lungs, where oxygen moves into the bloodstream and carbon dioxide is released for exhalation. What term describes the pressure of blood against blood vessel walls, especially the arteries? A. Cardiac output. B. Pulse pressure. C. Venous return. D. Blood pressure. The correct answer is D. Blood pressure reflects the force of blood flow within the arteries and plays a vital role in maintaining adequate perfusion of organs and tissues. Which blood vessel carries deoxygenated blood from the heart to the lungs for oxygenation, before returning to the heart for systemic circulation? A. Pulmonary artery. B. Pulmonary vein. C. Aorta. D. Coronary artery. The correct answer is A. The pulmonary artery carries oxygen-poor blood from the heart's right ventricle to the lungs. There, the blood gets oxygen before returning to the body. Which heart chamber pumps oxygenated blood to the rest of the body? A. Left atrium. B. Right atrium. C. Left ventricle. D. Right ventricle. The correct answer is C. The left ventricle pumps oxygenated blood to the rest of the body through the systemic circulation. What is the name of the valve that separates the right ventricle from the pulmonary artery to prevent backflow of blood? A. Mitral valve. B. Tricuspid valve. C. Aortic valve. D. Pulmonary valve. The correct answer is D. The pulmonary valve separates the right ventricle from the pulmonary artery, ensuring blood flows in the correct direction. What phase of the cardiac cycle involves the relaxation of the heart chambers, allowing them to fill with blood? A. Systole. B. Diastole. C. Isovolumetric contraction. D. Isovolumetric relaxation. The correct answer is B. Diastole is the phase where the heart chambers relax and fill with blood before the next contraction, systole, occurs.